This week, the adults of the country will be making a very important decision. Should the UK remain part of the European Union? This argument has divided politicians, but also oddly united some politicians. Of those arguing to remain in the UK is British Prime Minister and Conservative David Cameron.
The Leave campaign are asking us to take a massive risk with the future of our economy and the future of our country.
And the leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn.
I believe that the European Union has the potential to deliver positive change for the people of this country.
Arguing that Britain should leave the EU is Boris Johnson.
I believe we would be mad not to take this once-in-a-lifetime chance.
And Nigel Farage.
We should not be thinking about Europe as our future.
Needless to say, it's quite a big deal. Heck, there's even a movie about it.
We, the people, are being cajoled, frightened, and bullied into surrendering our democracy and freedom. This film is a rallying cry. We must fight for our independence, for the right to determine ourselves, the laws under which we live, and for the freedom to shape our own future.
But if you look at the arguments, it's all pretty complicated.
We are approaching one of the biggest decisions this country will face in our lifetimes.
I don't know, I guess I like the idea of us being together with people.
I'm not nothing against foreigners, but you can't understand them. Old people are finding it hard to understand what they're saying and things are going wrong.
We can have someone unskilled within Europe coming in without any questions, but a really talented doctor from India has to go through a really intensive process.
There's too much legislation coming from the EU.
It's a myth to say that we don't make our own laws. And look at what Europe has given us. Access to a single market, jobs and prosperity.
If Britain does vote to pull out of the EU, British citizens wouldn't be able to travel as easily through Europe.
We are spending £350 million a week to run Europe.
There are many people who would say the only way to guarantee our EU membership is to be independent.
I am genuinely and deeply concerned about potential threats to this country.
Not opting back into the European arrest warrant would make this a less safe country.
If we're not members of the European Union, we can very clearly determine who comes to Britain and who can't.
The suggestion from Downing Street has been that if the UK were to vote to leave the EU, thousands of migrants could end up in towns like Dover and other places in the south of England.
There's been no European free trade area country that stayed out of the European Union but has not had to accept free movement. Norway do that, Switzerland do that.
It's an extremely dangerous and precarious situation. There's a lot of jobs at stake.
If the UK left the EU, why would it benefit?
What we could do immediately is start doing free trade deals around the world. That's the part of the world economy that's growing.
I can't make an educated decision.
There's been no facts, just scaremongering from both sides.
I don't understand it, none of us understand it.
It's a pantomime.
Dodgy, baloney, miserable, negative.
You might as well just have a bomb disposal expert and we vote, is it the red or the blue wire?
Fortunately, at the Sir Thomas Fremantle High-Tech Media Centre, we've managed to provide some of the arguments for and against leaving the EU.
It costs us £13 billion to be part of the EU. 13 billion! To give you an idea just how much that is 7% of the amount of money we spend on the NHS. What can we do with that money? Loads of stuff. We'd be buying iPads for all the schools in the country, or buying more doctors and hospitals and things like that. Things that can really help us British people. Clearly we should leave the EU.
Hold up. We might have to give them 13 billion to be part of the EU. But the UK have 1.87 trillion. That's not too much for the benefits, I don't think. What's more, we get 5 billion back every year in refunds and rebates. And the generous EU also give us 4.46 billion to develop the poorer parts of the UK, such as the Shetland Islands and Cornwall. Come on guys, let's stay in.
Now let's talk sovereignty. Posh word, what does it mean? Well, sovereignty is the country's right to create its own laws to govern itself. Now at the moment, a lot of our laws come from the EU. So we're having laws put on us by European countries that we might not agree with. So what we should do is leave the EU so we don't have European laws pushed on top of us.
Well, I'm not so sure. I think sovereignty is all well and good, But how many laws would we really change if we left the EU? Now, the EU does control some of our laws. They're in charge of things like workers' rights, migrant benefits, the cleanliness of our beaches. They don't have a say over the big stuff, the important stuff, the stuff that we already make our own laws for. The police, schools, the NHS. We still have control over what we need control of. Stay in.
When we joined the European Union, we agreed to let anyone from Europe be allowed to move to our country. In fact, in 2014, 641,000 people came to Britain, and 50% of those came from Europe. So clearly, we've got a problem. These people need houses, they need schools, they need access to doctors. That can't carry on, people. We need to leave the EU.
Do you know what I dislike? Misleading figures. Yes, lots of people come into this country, but we should welcome them. Between 2001 and 2011, immigrants gave the economy £20 billion from the work that they produced in this country. And not only this, a top London university found that immigrants spend more in taxes, they give us more in their taxes, than they take away in benefits. They give us more, they take less. Easy answer. When we let people in, the country gets richer. Stay in. Right, a big one, trade. This is to do with money. Right now, 50% of British exports, the things that our businesses sell to other countries, all go to the EU. And this is great because at the moment, all of that 50% of trade is tax-free. We can sell it at no cost. If we leave the EU, we'll have to pay a tariff. There'll be a big red wall between us and Europe. That's going to cost us money. Tariff means money. Who pays that money? Businesses. And if businesses are paying more to trade abroad, they're going to put their prices up. And that means you, the consumer, you're paying more in the shops. All of the international organisations are saying it's going to cost more if we leave. Let's stay in, keep prices low, keep trading fluid. Stay in.
Nonsense. We can leave the EU, it's fine. People in Europe want our stuff. They're not going to start charging us to export stuff to them because they want it. And better yet, if we leave the EU, we'll have the freedom to trade with really rich and upcoming economies such as Brazil, the USA, China, India. Some of these countries are the ones you would have looked at in geography. You know that these places are quite wealthy or up and coming. We get minted off them. We can't do that if we stay in the EU because the EU gets to decide who we can and cannot trade with. So clearly, we should leave the EU, we will make money.